All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. We're continuing on with the Big 12. We've got the Utah Utes we're covering today. Utah made quite a bit of moves over the offseason, some transfers coming in. Marcus, we'll start with you. Who do we think is the biggest transfer, the biggest name Utah got?
I don't know. I mean, quietly, I think that Alex Jensen did a pretty good job here. As anyone who's listened to our podcast knows, I've been praising these schools that have gone after NBA guys as their head coaches. Alex Jensen has been in the NBA since 2013 with the Jazz and the Mavericks. I think he had a pretty good offseason here, brought over two guys from Western Kentucky in Babacar Faye and Don McHenry. And then I think he got some higher upside guys as well. And in Ja'Kai Howard coming from Auburn, was a 4-star recruit last year. Didn't really get an opportunity, of course, at Auburn to do too much. I think he played like 9 minutes a game, but had good shooting splits in the minutes that he did play. And then Traore coming over from Iowa, I think he has some upside as well. And he had some other solid pickups as well. Terrence Brown came over, averaged 20.6 last year. Didn't shoot it great from three. More of a downhill 2-point guy, but overall, I really do think that Utah had a solid offseason considering where they've been. I don't know, like Don McHenry last year, I've been a big fan of his. I, for whatever reason, watched him a few years ago, like a few consecutive games. One of them was actually a game I think they ended up losing. It was against New Mexico State on the road. They were up like 27 and ended up – they were up like 20 or something and ended up losing at New Mexico State. But he had a big game, if I remember correctly, and last year just kind of struggled to shoot the ball. Was like upper 30s from the field, 31% from three. But year before that was 46% from the field and 36% from three. So it's there for him. I think he can do some good things for Utah along with some of these other pickups they got.
Cody, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously, I think Jensen did a pretty good job for, this being his first actual college job. I think he was at St. Louis from 2007 to 2011, and then since then he's been in the NBA, most recently with the Mavericks. And yeah, I would agree. I mean, like being able to bring in those NBA concepts and NBA style offense, has worked for some coaches, most notably like a guy like Kevin Young at BYU just down the road from Salt Lake. So it's not going to be the same thing. Obviously, the talent level is a lot different here, but I think Utah, they did a pretty good job with, and I do think Don McHenry is probably the best guy that they got. Although I'm not like over the moon about him, especially from like a shot making talent. I know he shot better in 23 or the 23-24 season. You said he shot 36%, I believe.
46 from the field, 36.
46. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, but I think he's somewhere in between that low 30s or 30% and in the 36% that he shot. I'm not extremely high on the shooting talent. I think when he's off balance, he's super inconsistent. He's not like a high level shot maker in that regard, but I think he's a really poised guard that is always kind of making the right reads as opposed to making high level reads. I think he's more of a combo guard that is going to play alongside Brown, and they're kind of going to play off of each other in that regard. And they're both pretty good with the ball. And I think McHenry is probably going to be the man that starts at point guard. And he's just a poised guard with a veteran presence. And I think he's a competent scorer at all three levels. He's a solid rim scorer in transition along with Brown. I do think Jensen, I would assume that he speeds up the tempo, especially having these two guards side by side, especially with Terrence Brown. He loves to play in transition and he loves to score at the rim. I mean, he took 8.4 rim field goal attempts per game. I think that led the entire country. And for a guard, that's kind of ridiculous, honestly. And he He had a 37% free throw rate, which is fairly high for a guard. But I guess there are some concerns with how those two will play off of each other in the half court, just because both of them lack like high level shooting ability. But I do like Don McHenry as the guard that's going to translate a little bit better and have a higher floor just because of his poise, and he's very patient and he's kind of taking what the defense gives him for his shot selection. His shot selection is a lot better than Brown's, so I prefer McHenry.
With the addition of McHenry and Brown, they definitely got some star power. But are there any other transfers that stand out, fit the system well, or anything like that? Marcus, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Ja'Kai Howard briefly. I think this is a really good get from like an upside perspective. 1 year at Auburn, he didn't really get to play much, but he was efficient in his limited opportunity. Was 53%, I think, from the field and 40% from three. He was a 4-star recruit last year. I think obviously the talent's there. Can it translate? Can he figure it out in year 2 and get more of an opportunity? He's going to get the opportunity here, one would think. So, can he show off his talents? And then another one that, like, they got James Okonkwo, who's been around, it feels like, for 15 years at this point. But he's played in some Power 5 programs and done well. Had a solid year at Akron last year. Averaged about 7 and 7. So he'll be solid, like a front court piece that can give them kind of consistent, steady numbers. I guess he's not going to do anything crazy, but he'll be fine to kind of steady the front court.
Cody, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess just to touch on Howard a little bit, he had like some off the court issues. I think wasn't he involved in like that scuffle on the plane when they were headed to Houston? I don't know like how big of a deal that was. And then there was another clip of him getting upset with some of his other teammates' shot selection mid game. I believe that was in like a November game, and then he kind of never played after that. Didn't really play all that much. So I'm obviously not going to question his character or anything like that. I don't know him personally. So, but yeah, he's a freak. He's a freak athlete, and he can be. He's got 2A upside. So I think he's a guy that's probably going to end up coming off the bench, because I do like the front court combo of Babacar Faye and who they're getting back, Keanu Dawes. I think they display a ton of versatility up front. None of them really have any elite traits. I think Faye is a really good offensive rebounder, a really good rim runner, and he plays in transition really well. He can score in multiple ways. He's not going to be like a dominant presence by any means, but I mean, he averaged 16 points a game in his small sample size last season. Only played 9 games, missed the rest of the year with injury. But I actually think at the end of the day, like when we're looking at who's going to provide the most offensive value, it's probably going to end up being Faye with his versatile skill set. And I think a lot of these front court pieces are very interchangeable. Like Okonkwo, you mentioned, like he's pretty good in space defensively. Plus, he's a really, really good offensive rebounder. I believe he had a 16.8% offensive rebound rate, which is pretty ridiculous. Probably one of the tops in the entire country. I think he's going to be a good bench piece as well. And yet, like you mentioned, Seydou Traore didn't really get to see much of his like defensive versatility at Iowa, just because nobody around him could defend. So we can't really see it in the numbers how good he was. But I do think he's going to provide somewhat of a two-way spark for this team. So I do kind of like the front court. I think they're, dependent on the matchup, they can kind of switch who they have on the floor. So I do like what Jensen did from, I think, a floor raising standpoint. I don't think the talent on the offensive end across the board is off the charts by any means, but I think they could be stable and I wouldn't be like ultimately shocked if they sat in the middle of the pack in the Big 12.
Yeah, with their talented additions and Jensen kind of leading the charge, what can we expect for the upcoming season from this team? We see them as middle of the pack or maybe a little higher ceiling? Marcus, we'll start with you.
I think probably still like that bottom third of the Big 12, but maybe some upside to get, as Cody said, into the middle of the pack. They're certainly not the worst team in the Big 12, but they're still not like in that middle third or upper third. Like they're okay. But I do like the moves and the trajectory that they're on with a new coach this offseason.
Cody, how about you?
I'd say, yeah, bottom third is pretty fair. I'm not that high on the shot making across the board, but they do have, like I said, they have some versatile pieces in the front court, and across the board, I think they're going to be pretty good defensively. I think McHenry and Terrence Brown can both hold their own, especially Brown. Brown is he's kind of a big time defensive playmaker. He's always looking to make plays on the ball, kind of at the expense of, giving up defensive position at times. But I think his playmaking ability is something that can really help this team get out in transition, which is kind of what I project this offense to be, is a little bit faster paced. I think that's going to suit the McHenry and Brown tandem a little bit better. Plus, I mean, I think, all of these front court guys are super athletic and can get down the floor. So, yeah, I think if Jensen can figure it out early on, which to be honest, I'm not completely sure what he is as a head coach because we haven't really seen it, but bringing in NBA concepts, maybe it'll go really well. Maybe it'll take time. But, yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they're middle of the pack, but for now, I'd say they're in the bottom third, probably in the 12-13 range.
Do we have any final thoughts? It definitely sounds like they're trending upward, but anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, it was time for Craig Smith to go. I think he kind of built rosters fairly similar. It was kind of front court based, like guys that were, mobile and could rebound super well. He was kind of a floor raiser on that end, but he just didn't have the perimeter creation to raise any sort of ceiling. But I think with what Jensen did and, the style that he's going to bring, I think ultimately he can help Utah win a few more games this year.
Right on. Marcus?
No, I got nothing.
All right. Well, it does sound like there's quite a bit to look forward to if you're a Utes fan, but we'll wrap things up. As always, thank you, everyone, for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.